The day the Zerathian delegation arrived on Earth, the world seemed to hold its breath. Spaceships glided silently over the cities, leaving trails of shimmering light that reflected in the eyes of millions of humans staring up from the streets. Among the ambassadors from distant worlds was a woman named Lyra. She was not like the humans around her, not like the tall, symmetrical, polite figures who were used to moving among their kind. Her skin was a deep green, mottled in places like the surface of a planet after rain. Her eyes were golden and too large, with pupils shaped in a way that startled the unprepared human gaze. Her face was uneven, her ears slightly pointed, and her movements were graceful yet unfamiliar. The humans who saw her first could not hide their shock. In the council halls, whispers began immediately. "Who is that?" One delegate muttered. "Why is she even here?" Another asked. People nudged each other, their faces betraying a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Some called her ugly, some tried to hide their amusement. But Lyra walked with a quiet dignity, unaware or perhaps unconcerned about the judgments swirling around her. Her mind, sharp and focused, was on her mission, to represent Zerathia with honesty, intelligence, and courage. Among the humans, one man noticed her differently. Captain Elias Carter, a respected human officer and ambassador, had attended countless meetings and seen countless faces. Yet when he looked at Lyra, he felt a strange pull in his chest. He did not see the uneven features or the skin that others whispered about. He saw a being full of strength, intelligence, and a kind of quiet sadness that few people carried so openly. It was the sadness of someone who had always been judged for something they could not control. Someone who had learned to survive without recognition. Someone who had a fire within her that refused to be dimmed by the cruel opinions of others. Elias's colleagues did not notice the subtle expressions, the way Lyra's golden eyes flicked with curiosity, how her fingers moved as if counting invisible numbers in the air when she thought. But he did. He saw the way her shoulders squared when she entered a room, despite the whispers, despite the laughter. He saw courage in her quiet posture, and in that moment he realized something profound. The world might call her ugly, but he could see her true worth. The first council meeting was tense. Humans and aliens crowded into the chamber, their languages overlapping like the hum of a distant storm. Lyra's voice when she spoke was clear, melodic, and precise. She presented ideas for interplanetary cooperation, trade agreements, and methods to prevent conflicts that could destroy entire worlds. Some humans leaned forward, pretending to listen, but their expressions betrayed judgment, barely hiding their discomfort at her appearance. Others whispered to each other, laughing softly behind their hands. Elias did not laugh. He did not whisper. He listened. He asked questions that revealed his understanding and respect for her proposals. While others dismissed her ideas because of appearances, he recognized the depth of her intelligence, the care with which she had considered every possibility, every consequence. He began to see Lyra not just as an alien, but as someone extraordinary, a mind and a heart that were rare in any world, even among humans. After the meeting, as Lyra prepared to leave the chamber, some delegates made cruel jokes. They imitated her voice, mocked her features, and sneered at her ideas. A faint shadow of sadness crossed her golden eyes, but she held her head high and walked steadily down the corridor. Elias approached her quietly, careful not to embarrass her further. "You did well," he said softly. Lyra looked at him surprised. No human had spoken to her like that before. Why do you say that?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "Because I see you," Elias said simply. "I see who you really are, not what they think you should be." For the first time in a long while, Lyra felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. Someone human had looked past the judgments, past the whispers, and seen her for what she truly was. It was a small spark, but sparks could grow into fire, and in that moment, Elias Carter became a light in her strange, lonely world. And so, the journey began. Not just of diplomacy and interplanetary negotiation, but of two souls noticing each other in a universe too often blind to the true worth hidden within. The days that followed Lyra's arrival were filled with tension. The council meetings were long, the air thick with impatience and unspoken judgments. Humans whispered behind their hands, criticizing her skin, her eyes, her uneven features. Some outright mocked her ideas, calling them strange or unrealistic, while others ignored her completely. Even among her fellow aliens there was a subtle wariness. Lyra's way of thinking was different, her logic unfamiliar, and for some that was unsettling. But Elias noticed every detail. He noticed the way Lyra's hands trembled slightly when someone questioned her plans, the way her golden eyes flicked toward the ceiling when she needed a moment to think, and the small, quiet smile she forced when she answered a question with precision. He realized that beneath the calm exterior was a mind sharper than anyone in that room, and a heart braver than most could imagine. One evening, after another grueling session that had left Lyra exhausted and quiet, Elias found her alone in a small garden at the back of the council building. The artificial grass was soft beneath her feet, and the simulated sunlight glimmered through the glass dome above. She stood still, staring at the reflection of herself in a small pond, her thoughts heavy. "You're quiet tonight," Elias said, stepping softly beside her. Lyra didn't turn at first. She stared at the water, seeing herself as humans saw her, strange, unbalanced, ugly. "They don't listen," she whispered finally. "No one listens to me. They only see what I am on the outside. My ideas, my words. It doesn't matter." Elias shook his head. "You're wrong," he said gently. "I hear you. I see you. And what you're saying matters more than they could ever imagine." She finally turned to look at him, and for a moment her eyes glimmered with surprise, a mixture of doubt and hope. Why do you care?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone else thinks I'm less than ugly, unworthy. Why don't you?" Elias smiled, a calm, reassuring smile. "Because I see who you truly are," he said simply. "Not the skin, not the shape of your eyes, not what they call ugly. I see your courage, your intelligence, your heart. That is what matters. That is what I care about." For a long moment Lyra was silent, letting his words sink in. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. All her life she had been judged by appearances, overlooked because she didn't look like the others. But Elias saw beyond that. He saw value where others saw flaws. Over the next few days their conversations grew longer, more personal. Elias asked about her planet, Zerathia, about her family, her childhood, and the struggles she had faced simply for being different. Lyra began to open up, telling him about the times she had been ridiculed, the times she had been dismissed, the loneliness that had followed her like a shadow. Elias listened without interruption, offering small words of encouragement. And slowly, a bond began to form. It was not friendship in the easy sense. It was deeper, quieter, and more meaningful. Lyra found herself looking forward to his questions, his thoughtful comments, the way he seemed genuinely interested in her world. And Elias, for the first time in years, felt a connection that went beyond duty or curiosity. He admired her mind, yes, but more than that, he admired the strength in her soul. One afternoon, as they walked through the gardens, Lyra paused and said softly, "You make it seem simple to see me as I am, but it's not simple for everyone, is it?" Elias shook his head. "No," he admitted. "Most people are too busy looking at the surface. They miss the real value beneath. That's why I will always choose to see you." For the first time, Lyra felt a warmth that wasn't just in her chest but in her heart. She realized that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for her true worth. And that thought, fragile yet powerful, made the endless whispers and cruel laughter of the council fade, at least for a moment. As the council meetings continued, the atmosphere grew heavier. The humans who had once whispered now openly challenged Lyra's presence. They mocked her voice, her skin, her golden eyes, and even the way she walked. Some laughed at her proposals before she could finish explaining them. Others interrupted her, calling her ideas dangerous or unrealistic. Lyra tried to maintain her composure. She had faced prejudice before, on her planet and beyond, and she had learned how to endure it. But the cruelty of these humans, the ones who claimed to be enlightened and civilized, was sharper than she expected. Every laugh, every cruel word weighed on her spirit like stones in her chest. She began to doubt herself, even though her mind knew her ideas were sound. Elias watched it all quietly, but inside, his heart ached. He had never liked injustice, but seeing it directed at someone like Lyra, someone brilliant, someone courageous, filled him with an anger he rarely felt. He wanted to step forward, to challenge every human who dared insult her, to protect her from their cruelty. But the rules of diplomacy held him back. He could not openly confront them without causing an uproar that might destroy her chance to be heard. One morning, the council convened to discuss a plan for a critical interplanetary treaty. Lyra's suggestions, if accepted, could prevent conflicts that might escalate into war. But as she spoke, the humans interrupted her again, laughing and whispering among themselves. "She's too strange," one delegate sneered. "Who would trust a face like that?" Lyra's chest tightened. Her golden eyes glimmered with frustration, but she remained composed. She answered their questions calmly, but the whispers continued and some humans outright refused to listen. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly powerless, not because of her abilities but because of the world's refusal to see her worth. Elias could no longer stand aside. He rose from his seat, his voice firm but calm. "Enough," he said. Every head in the room turned toward him. "You are ignoring what is truly important. Lyra's ideas are sound, and she has the knowledge and experience to guide us. Your judgments are based on appearances, not merit." The room went silent. Some humans shifted uncomfortably, while others sneered, clearly annoyed by his intervention. Lyra looked at Elias with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. She had never expected someone to defend her so openly, not here, not now. Elias stepped closer to her, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I see your strength," he said softly. "I see your mind, your courage, your heart. Do not let them make you forget who you are." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a spark of hope. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she felt that someone truly believed in her, not just her ideas but her very being. That belief was more powerful than any insult, more enduring than any laughter. Despite Elias's support, the opposition continued. The council voted against her initial proposals, choosing safer, less effective options. Lyra felt a sharp sting of disappointment, but she refused to give up. She knew the stakes were too high to abandon her mission. Every life that could be saved mattered more than her pride or their cruel words. After the meeting, Elias accompanied her to a quiet room at the edge of the council complex. Lyra sank into a chair, her green skin shimmering faintly under the soft lights. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "They don't see me. They never will." Elias knelt beside her, taking her hand gently in his. "You are stronger than they will ever understand," he said. "I see your worth and I will stand by you. No one else matters. Your courage, your mind, your heart, they are priceless, and someday the world will see it too." Lyra looked into his eyes, feeling a mixture of awe and relief. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. Someone had chosen to see her for what she truly was, and that choice gave her the strength to keep fighting. The battle was far from over. The council might have dismissed her today, but with Elias by her side, Lyra knew she would never let the world decide her worth. And in that knowledge, a quiet fire began to grow within her. A fire that could not be extinguished by judgment, ridicule, or fear. The days turned into weeks, and the bond between Elias and Lyra grew stronger. It was quiet at first, subtle, a glance here, a shared word there, but its presence was undeniable. Every time they spoke, Elias found himself drawn to her intelligence, her curiosity, and the courage she carried in her heart. Lyra, in turn, felt something she had rarely experienced, a sense of being truly understood. The humans around them continued their whispers and judgments, but in Elias's company, Lyra felt safe. For the first time in her life, she could speak without fear of mockery. She told him about her home planet, the forests of Zerathia that glowed softly at night, the mountains that seemed to touch the stars, and the rivers that shone like liquid silver. She spoke of her childhood, of being different, and of learning to survive in a world that often rejected her. Her voice carried both sorrow and resilience, and Elias listened with genuine interest, hanging on every word. "You've been through so much," Elias said one evening as they walked through the quiet corridors of the council building, "and yet here you are, standing, speaking, fighting. Most people would have given up?" Lyra smiled faintly, though her golden eyes reflected a touch of sadness. "I don't have a choice," she admitted. "If I stop trying, others will suffer. If I give up, lives are at stake. I have to keep going even when it's hard." Elias stopped walking and turned to face her. "That's what makes you extraordinary," he said softly. "It's not just your ideas, not just your courage. It's your heart. You care more than anyone else in that room, more than most humans would even imagine." Her breath caught at his words. No one had ever seen her like that before. Not her appearance, not her perceived flaws, but her soul. The loneliness she had carried for centuries seemed to lighten, even if just a little, in the warmth of his understanding. As their conversations deepened, so did their trust. Elias shared his own fears, his doubts, and the experiences that had shaped him. He told her about his childhood on Earth, about losing friends in wars he had fought, and about the moments when he had felt powerless. Lyra listened, offering quiet comfort and insight, never judging, always understanding. Their bond became a refuge, a place where neither had to hide their true selves. One afternoon, as they worked late on a treaty proposal, a sudden argument broke out in the council hall. Delegates shouted, papers rustled, and voices echoed. Lyra flinched, her composure faltering for just a moment. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here. We'll face it together." She looked at him then, and for the first time she allowed herself to feel something deeper than gratitude. She felt a connection, a rare, unshakable bond that went beyond respect or friendship. In that simple gesture, Elias had proven something to her. She was not alone, and someone believed in her worth completely. As the council debates continued, Lyra found herself laughing quietly at Elias's dry humor, marveling at the way he could remain calm in the chaos. Elias, in turn, found joy in her curiosity, the way her mind worked like a finely tuned instrument, always finding solutions others had missed. Their moments together, brief though they were, became the highlight of each day. One evening, under the soft glow of the artificial sun in the council gardens, Lyra finally admitted, "I never thought anyone could see me like this, not for my mind, not for my heart, but you do, and it means more than I can say." Elias took her hand gently in his own. "I will always see you," he said. "Not for what the world thinks you should be, but for who you truly are. That will never change." For the first time, Lyra felt hope that went beyond surviving the council's cruelty. She felt the possibility of being valued for her true self, and Elias, watching the golden light in her eyes, realized that he had found someone remarkable, not in spite of her differences, but because of them. Together they had found a connection that neither prejudice nor doubt could touch, a bond built on trust, respect, and the recognition of true worth, and in that quiet, fleeting moment, the world outside seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them and the promise of something extraordinary yet to come. The council chamber was tense that morning. Reports had come in from a remote system, rumors of a rogue faction planning to ignite a war between human and Zyrathian forces. Panic swept through the room as delegates shouted over one another, each proposing aggressive measures. Fear filled the air like a thick fog, and judgment drowned out reason. Lyra stood at the center of it all, calm yet resolute. Her golden eyes swept across the chaos, analyzing, calculating, considering every possibility. She spoke carefully, offering a strategy that could prevent the war without sacrificing lives. Her plan was daring, precise, and risky, but it was the only option that could save thousands, perhaps millions. "Impossible," one human delegate scoffed. "You expect us to trust a Zyrathian? With your appearance, He faltered when Elias stepped forward. "No," Elias said firmly, his voice cutting through the room like steel. "I trust her. I trust her judgment. This plan will work because it is smart, because it is well thought out, and because she knows the consequences better than any of us." The chamber fell silent. Shock rippled through the delegates. Humans who had mocked her, laughed at her, and dismissed her ideas were now forced to listen. Lyra felt a flutter of nervousness but steadied herself. She had prepared for this. She had anticipated doubts, mockery, even threats, but she had not expected Elias to stand so firmly by her side, to trust her completely when no one else would. "Elias," she whispered, just enough for him to hear. "I believe in you," he said simply. "Now show them what you can do." Lyra took a deep breath and outlined the plan in detail, her voice clear and unwavering. She explained how the rogue faction could be intercepted without bloodshed, how communications could prevent misunderstandings, and how both humans and Zyrathians could be guided safely back to their homes. Her logic was impeccable, her timing precise. Every step, every contingency accounted for. Some humans resisted. "We can't rely on her. She's an alien," one delegate shouted. Others whispered doubts behind their hands, but Elias did not waver. He stood near her, offering silent support, a shield against ridicule, a symbol that at least one human believed in her fully. After tense deliberation, the council agreed reluctantly at first to follow Lyra's plan. She and Elias were given the authority to coordinate the mission. As they left the chamber together, she felt a surge of determination mixed with gratitude. Elias had not only believed in her plan but had believed in her as a person. That belief became a strength she carried like armor. The mission was dangerous. Lyra coordinated with fleets of both humans and Zerathians, navigating treacherous systems and avoiding traps set by the rogue faction. Elias worked beside her, monitoring communications and ensuring her strategies were executed perfectly. Hours stretched into days, and the pressure weighed heavily on them both. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The rogue faction attempted a final strike, but Lyra's foresight had anticipated it. The trap was avoided, the enemy neutralized without unnecessary bloodshed, and the war was averted. Both humans and Zerathians breathed a collective sigh of relief. When the council reconvened to review the mission's success, there was no room for ridicule, no laughter, no whispers. Lyra had proven her worth in the most undeniable way possible. Humans who had doubted her were forced to acknowledge her brilliance. Elias watched her quietly from the corner, pride swelling in his chest. Lyra, standing tall despite exhaustion, finally allowed herself a small, tired smile. She had faced the council's cruelty, the humans' prejudice, and the threat of war, and she had triumphed. Later, in a quiet room away from the chamber, Elias took her hands in his. "You were incredible," he said softly. "Not just because your plan worked, but because of who you are. You never gave up. You never let them make you doubt yourself. That's the real courage." Lyra's eyes glimmered with tears, a mixture of relief, pride, and something deeper she had never felt before. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. Elias shook his head gently. "No," he said. "You did this. I only saw what everyone else refused to see, your true worth. And now everyone else will have to see it too." For the first time since her arrival on Earth, Lyra felt truly seen. The whispers, the laughter, and the cruelty of the council faded into insignificance. She had faced the ultimate test, and she had passed. And by her side stood the one human who had never doubted her, the one who had chosen to see her for who she really was. The bond between them had been tested in fire, and it had emerged unbroken, stronger than ever. And in that strength, Lyra found not just victory, but hope for a future where she could be valued for her mind, her heart, and her courage. After the crisis was averted, the council chamber felt different. The echoes of whispers and laughter had been replaced by cautious acknowledgement. Delegates, once dismissive, now regarded Lyra with respect, hesitant yet undeniable. They could no longer ignore the brilliance that had saved countless lives. Every chart, every calculation, every decision she had made during the mission stood as proof of her extraordinary mind. Lyra, however, hardly noticed the change. Her focus was still on the work that needed to be done, the systems that had been stabilized, the communication lines she had restored between humans and Zerathians. Yet she could feel the eyes of the council upon her. And though it was uncomfortable at first, it was also strangely validating. Elias stayed close as always. He had watched her through sleepless nights, through the strain of impossible decisions, through moments when doubt threatened to overwhelm her. And now, as the council finally recognized her, he felt a quiet pride in seeing her rise, not just through talent but through sheer perseverance and courage. Some humans approached her hesitantly. "Lyra," one delegate said, clearing his throat, we want to apologize for our earlier behavior. We were wrong to doubt you, and your plan, it was remarkable." Lyra's golden eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. She nodded, accepting the apology without bitterness. Years of prejudice and ridicule had taught her the value of grace. "Thank you," she replied simply. "What matters is not the past, but what we do moving forward." Another delegate stepped forward, this time with a genuine curiosity rather than judgment. "Your approach, it changed the way we think about interplanetary cooperation. How do you see these solutions so clearly when the rest of us cannot?" Lyra's expression remained calm, but there was a flicker of pride in her gaze. "I listen," she said softly. "I observe. I think beyond appearances and assumptions. Decisions are not about power or status, they are about people and the lives we can protect." Elias watched quietly, knowing that her words carried the weight of truth. He knew that many humans were still learning to see beyond appearances, But Lyra's courage had forced them to confront their own blindness. Later, away from the council chamber, Elias approached her as they walked through the quiet halls. "They finally see it," he said gently. Lyra shook her head. "They see the plan, yes. But understanding the heart behind it, that is harder. Most of them still judge me by the surface. Only a few like you truly see me." Elias smiled and took her hand. "I see you," he said simply. "Not for your skin, not for your eyes, not for what others call ugly. I see your strength, your courage, your heart. That is all that matters." Lyra felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not as an equal, not as someone worthy of belief and admiration. The weight of years of ridicule and loneliness seemed to lift just slightly, replaced by the warmth of recognition and care. The council had acknowledged her mind, but Elias had acknowledged her soul. And that acknowledgement, quiet, unwavering, and sincere, was far more powerful than any award or title the council could offer. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a life where she could be seen, where her worth could never again be measured by appearance alone. She had survived prejudice, she had faced impossible odds, and she had proven the value of intelligence, courage, and heart. Elias, watching her golden eyes shine, felt a deep certainty. She was extraordinary in every way, not because she was perfect, but because she had persevered in the face of judgment and fear. And he had chosen to see that from the very beginning. Together they walked forward side by side, knowing that recognition from the world was fleeting, but recognition from someone who truly saw you was eternal. Months passed since the crisis, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. Humans and Zyrathians worked together more closely than ever before, thanks to Lyra's brilliance and courage. The council that had once mocked her now sought her advice. Her golden eyes, once a source of ridicule, were now seen as a symbol of insight and wisdom. Yet, for all the recognition she received, the person who mattered most to her remained Elias Carter. Elias had watched her transform the world around her without losing herself in the process. He had seen her courage, her intelligence, and her heart in action. But more than that, he had seen her when the world turned away, when no one listened, when no one cared. It was in those moments when she was alone with her thoughts and her fears that he recognized her true worth. One evening, as the sun set over the council complex, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Elias turned to Lyra. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about where I belong, about what matters most to me." Lyra tilted her head, curious but cautious. "And where is that?" she asked softly. Elias took a deep breath. "It's here," he said, looking into her eyes. "With you. Not on Earth, not in the council chambers, not anywhere else. I see your worth, your true worth, and I can't imagine my life without you. I've chosen to be with you, Lyra. No one else, nothing else matters." Lyra's golden eyes widened. For a moment she was speechless, overwhelmed by a mixture of disbelief and joy. No human had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever chosen her truly completely, despite what the world said about her appearance. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Her heart pounded with emotion. "All my life I've been judged, dismissed, and ignored. And now you're saying you choose me?" "Yes," Elias said firmly. "I choose you because I see you, because I know your mind, your courage, your heart, and I know that nothing else, nothing could ever be more important than that." Tears shimmered in Lyra's eyes. She had survived prejudice, ridicule, and loneliness, and now at last someone saw her not for the surface, but for everything she truly was. Her chest swelled with a mixture of relief, love, and awe. "Then, I choose you too," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because you see me." The council, unaware of the quiet choice being made, continued its work. But for Lyra and Elias, the world had shifted. They no longer needed validation from others. They had found it in each other. Together, they began to plan a life that spanned worlds, a life where judgment could not reach them, where love was measured by heart and mind, not appearances. Elias eventually resigned from his position, choosing to accompany Lyra back to Zerathia. The humans were shocked, some even bewildered, but Elias did not waver. He had seen her worth long before anyone else had. Nothing in the world could outweigh the certainty he felt in choosing her. On Zerathia, Lyra led efforts to build bridges between their planets, sharing her knowledge and vision for the future. Elias supported her, learning from her, marveling at her strength and loving her more with every passing day. Together they became legends not for their titles or power, but for the courage to see true worth in one another, a lesson the universe would remember. Years later, humans and Zyrathians would tell stories of the green-skinned woman with golden eyes who was once called ugly, and the human who saw her true worth. They would speak of courage, love, and the power of Loki,